Here is one more interesting thing that we can do with Eurodollar futures. So some chapters ago, we saw that we could get a curve of risk-free interest rates from the LIBOR and the swap rates. We would use LIBOR rates up to 1 year, and then we would switch to the swap market and build the curve using swap rates until from 1 year until 30 years. So what we can do now is to actually use the Eurodollar quotes for some years, because some of the Eurodollar quotes are more liquid than interest rate swaps. So the idea is the following. We're going to use LIBOR rates up to 1 year, which is what is available, okay? And then we will use Eurodollar futures for some period of time, usually from around 1 to 3 years. And after that 3 years or so, switch to swaps again, okay? So why do we use the Eurodollar futures only within this range of only up to 1 or 3 years? Well, if we look at the page that we saw before here, where we had the Eurodollar quotes, you can see here that this column here is the volume. You can see that these contracts are heavily traded for some time, right? So we are in February, so this is 2021, so this is the first year, lots of trading. For 2 years out, still substantial trading. For 3 years, still a lot of trading. But then at some point, so maybe here we could even use the futures. Sorry, this is 24. So this is 3 years, okay, 3 years. And then when we get 2025, now this is 4 years out, then you see that trading starts to decrease. The volume outstanding starts to decrease. So at some point, there is no trading in these futures anymore. So the point is we are going to use quotes while the futures is liquid. Okay, so usually means something around 3 years out. Okay. So going back to the handouts. So one more point. As we just saw in the previous video, the Eurodollar futures is very similar to a forward rate agreement or a swap with just one payment. So you might reasonably guess that you could just take the rate that is implied in the Eurodollar futures and immediately assume that that would be the forward rate, the forward LIBOR, like if it was a forward rate agreement, okay? However, here there is a detail. The fact that there is daily mark-to-market in the futures creates a difference between the rate that is quoted in that indirect way through the Q, the bond price, and what is actually the forward LIBOR. Okay, and in fact, the rate that is quoted is too high relative to the true forward rate. Okay, so this part of the course is something that we will just take as given, meaning this formula here comes from a model that we do not cover in this course. So we will just use it as a result without having to know the proof for where does this come from. But basically, the result is the following. The true forward rate is related to the rate that is quoted in the Eurodollar market through this expression. So I have from the quote that I observe. I mean, I'm saying the quote, but we already know the quote is that artificial bond. I have to go from that quote to the rate that is implied. But that part is easy, right? What is not easy is how to go to that from that quoted rate to the actual forward rate. But the adjustment is this. I take the quoted rate, and then I subtract this expression that you have here. So sigma is the volatility of the underlying LIBOR, and then this TI and TI plus 1 are these forward dates for which I am computing the forward rate. Okay, so this is easier to see with an example. So let's do this. So again, the idea is we will use all the LIBOR rates up to 1 year. Then we will use all the Eurodollar quotes until so from 1 year to 3 years, and then we'll use swap rates. Okay, so this is a very small example where we will just focus on the transition, which is the only hard part from the LIBOR market to the Eurodollar market. Okay, so everything else then would be more of the same. So this is just the crucial point that we want to look at. Okay, so let's assume that the 12-month LIBOR quoted in the market right now is 3%. And then the 1-year Eurodollar quote that I observe on the CME web page right now is 96.5. Okay. And I want to estimate the LIBOR zero curve. Okay. So again, the only thing I am going to do now is that I have here the 12-month rate already. I have here a forward rate between 1 year and 1 year plus 3 months. And what I'm going to do is to extend the curve from 1 year to 1.25 years. Okay, so the whole goal here is to compute the spot rate for 1.25 years. Okay. So let's do this in steps. Okay, again, the market right now shows me a 12-month LIBOR of 3%. The quote in the Eurodollar is 96.5 for a 1-year contract, which applies to this period here in the future. Okay, so let's go through this in steps. So first, the LIBOR rate that is quoted is as usual with annual compounding. I have to convert this to continuous compounding because that adjustment formula that I just showed you is with continuously compounded rates. Okay, so first, convert this annual rate of 3% to a continuously compounded rate. Okay, so that gives me the spot rate for 1 year with continuous compounding. Next, take the quote for the Eurodollar futures, get the interest rate that is implied by that quote. So this one is the easy part. It's immediate because it's just that formula we saw before. It's whatever it's left to 100. So in this case, 3.5%. But now I also need to convert this to continuous compounding to apply that formula. So take this 3.5% and convert it to a forward rate with continuous compounding. Okay, so I'll denote this by the forward rate implied in the Eurodollar contract, but with continuous compounding, right? And that is 348.48. Okay, so not exactly the 3.5, but very close. Okay, and now let's apply that conversion that we saw, that formula. So this is the actual forward rate that I should use, the forward LIBOR. This is the rate that is implied in the quote of the Eurodollar futures after converting to continuous compounding. And this is that convexity adjustment that comes in the formula, right? So we are just assuming that the volatility of the LIBOR rate is this number here. So it is just plug in the numbers, okay? So this rate is 348, comes from there. The volatility, and then this T is the first T here, which is when it's the settlement date of the contract, and this is, and the second T is 3 months after that, right? So it's 1 and 125. Okay, and that is the forward rate that I should use. Okay, so in summary, I have a spot rate for 1 year that comes directly from the LIBOR market. Sorry, this here. Okay, so this comes directly from the forward. From the LIBOR market here. Then I have this forward rate that I just computed here, and with these two rates, I can compute the spot rate for 125 years. Okay, so this is the usual calculation going from these two rates to this long spot rate, and I get a spot rate for 125 years with continuous compounding of this. All right. So in summary, going back to the PDF. In the end, this is what the term structure that we built, right? So we have this 1 year spot rate, and then using the Eurodollar futures, we were able to extend this a little bit more for 3 more months, and get the spot rate for 125 years. Okay, and then we would keep doing this using the next Eurodollar contract and so on until we got to the spot rate for 3 years. and after that we would go back to the swap market and use the swap quotes to build the curve from there until the end, until 30 years or something like that. Okay, that's it.